Episode 2 on my brand new show, Soccer for Kids, which is basically football for kids, but on US teams and players only, is out now. There's already an episode for you to check out on Christian Pulisic, and the brand new episode is on the US player and Juventus player, Weston McKennie. Search for Soccer for Kids wherever you listen to this podcast, give it a follow, and check out those episodes. Charlie and the Mystery of the Missing Cup. Written and read by Darren Rees. Chapter 1. Cheesecake. It was a wet and windy Monday morning in the school holidays, and Charlie, a football bonkers boy aged 8 3/4, was laying in bed fast asleep dreaming. Dreaming of cheesecake. Not any old cheesecake though. He was dreaming of a football-shaped cheesecake. The inner layer was thick, buttery biscuit. The next layer was a thick and creamy cheese, and the outer layer was a mixture of different chocolates patterned like a football. Charlie lay there in his room surrounded by posters. It was almost like there was a football tornado which had passed through his bedroom. There was posters of footballers everywhere, with a football patterned duvet, and the floor was covered in football cards. So much so that you couldn't see an inch of the carpet, much to Charlie's mum's annoyance. As Charlie's dream went by and he got closer and closer to eating the delicious cheesecake, he took a knife and cut an almighty chunk, plating it into a bowl. He walked over to the drawer, grabbed a spoon, and as he dived in, there was an almighty crash of thunder, and a gust of wind smashed into his bedroom window, waking him up from this glorious dream. Where Charlie lived was opposite a very special building, a building holding a very special cup, the famous cup, a football cup which has been played for over 100 years. It was made out of brass and had dents all over it, battered from being lifted and dropped and chucked around by all the top teams and all the top players. It's one of the most special football cups on earth. Charlie jumped out of bed with his heart still thumping out of his chest from the sudden crash of thunder. He walked from his bed to the window to watch the storm and dodge the lightning, when he noticed across the road in the very special building that the side door was open. It's never normally open, Charlie thought. I wonder if Mrs. Amber is there. Mrs. Amber is the caretaker of the building. She's been there for 53 years. She has grey, crazy hair, a tash that nobody has the heart to tell her about, and is always wearing the same thing. A light yellow top, a dark blue skirt covered in cat fur, and some heavy-duty boots. Charlie very quickly got himself into one of his 52 football kits. He raced down the stairs and shouted to his mum that he was going across the road to see Mrs. Amber. Charlie's mum didn't even look up from her coffee. She was used to Charlie going to see Mrs. Amber. The family had known her ever since they'd moved in many years ago. A kind, warm, and a little bit crazy old lady with a heart of gold. When Charlie crossed the road, he saw 3 people all walking in different directions near the special building. There was a man with a long brown coat which looked like it had seen better days. He had long dark hair which looked like seaweed, and about 3 teeth. He was drenched from the rain, and walking past at a fast pace while whistling through his teeth as he spoke to himself. What shall I have for my supper? Sesame seed soup. Sesame seed soup. The man walked past Charlie going to his left, and as he stared at him, Charlie thought to himself, how very strange. Then another person walked past him going the completely opposite direction. A lady with a smart black and white coat and a black hat like the ladies wear at the races. She was cathed in beads, but the most unusual thing about her was that she had a Rottweiler dog which looked just like her. The Rottweiler had pink beads, a similar style hat, and some bright pink lipstick on. The lady chatted away to her dog, and the dog's name appeared to be Patricia. Charlie thought to himself, How very strange. Just as he thought that, a man with a wooden leg came out of nowhere from behind him to cross the road. He had a sleeveless leather vest, a pirate-looking bandana, and a very distinctive wooden peg leg which was on full show. As he walked along, he sung a song to himself. You with a wooden leg, poke the fire. 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 Charlie thought to himself, how very strange. As Charlie thought to himself, how very strange, Mrs. Amber came flying out of a side door of a special building, screaming at the top of her voice. Ah! The cup! The famous cup! It's gone! What, Mrs. Amber? Said Charlie. It can't be. Let me come and have a look with you. As Charlie walked through the door, he noticed a few different things. Firstly, the markings of what looked like a walking stick. Secondly, a bright pink bead from a necklace. And lastly, a weird smell in the air. It smelt like soup. That's strange, Charlie thought. Charlie followed Mrs. Amber through a series of doors to the room where the famous cup was being kept. She was right. It was gone. Nowhere to be seen at all. Blimmin' heck, said Charlie. You aren't wrong. It's gone. You've got to call the police, Mrs. Amber. I can't. If I call the police, I'll have to notify the owners. And if they find out, well, I'll lose my job, Charlie. I can't lose my job. It's not your fault, though, said Charlie. Mrs. Amber, you've done nothing wrong. The police will be able to find the thieves who stole it. No, said Mrs. Amber in a stern voice. It was my fault and I need to fix it. Right you are, said Charlie, looking a little worried. Mrs. Amber paced around in circles, tapping her walking stick on the floor and saying the same thing over and over again. Think! 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 I'm trying to, Mrs. Amber, said Charlie, but I'm not going to lie. I'm a bit worried you're going to start an earthquake with that walking stick of yours. Right! Mrs. Amber shouted in a high-pitched voice. We need to do what the police would do in a situation like this. Or we could just call the police. It's only 3 numbers. It's completely free, and they might even let us have a go on the sirens, Mrs. Amber. No! Squealed Mrs. Amber. First things first, we must preserve and protect the crime scene. Have you got a camera in your house, Charlie? I think I have, said Charlie. Well, what are you waiting for? Off you trot. Go and get it. And for goodness sake, don't tell anyone about the missing cup. Charlie looked left and right before running across the road, bursting through his front door and running up the stairs on his hands and feet like an excited dog. What on earth are you doing? Shouted Charlie's mum. Mrs. Amber's gone mad. She's turned into a crime Charlie suddenly remembered. He wasn't to say a word to anyone. Mrs. Amber's done what, Charlie? Nothing! He shouted as he found the old camera and flew down the stairs and out the door. Mrs. Amber was waiting outside the building, looking very sketchy indeed. She'd stuck a pair of shades on in the hope that nobody would notice her, but of course, everyone would notice her. She had been looking after that place for 53 years. Charlie came running across the road with the camera, breathing heavily and looking very hot and sweaty. As he handed the camera over to Mrs. Amber, a shiny black car with wheels so clean you could see your face in them pulled up beside them. The car's windows slowly wound down, and a man with a bald head, which was as shiny as his wheels, with reflective shades on, said, You don't know us, Mrs. Amber, but we know you, Mrs. Amber. Who are you? Mrs. Amber said in a scared and shaken voice. Never you mind, said the man. But earlier today, we had one of our secret detectives take the famous cup. And if you want it back in time for the cup final on Saturday, you need to give us £50,000. It needs to be in a suitcase, and it needs to be left behind that tree over there. Friday, 10 a.m. If it's not there, no one will ever see the cup again. And we mean it. The car sped off with its tyres screeching, leaving marks on the road. Mrs. Amber went into full panic mode, and poor Charlie was trying to find the right words. Right, we've got to call the police now, Mrs. Amber. This has got completely out of control. No chance, she said. I've been looking after this place for over half a century, and you and I, Charlie, are going to find the culprits, and we're going to get that cup back. Mrs. Amber started by taking pictures of evidence in the building and swabbed the door handles for fingerprints. Once Mrs. Amber had finished, she said, "In you come, Charlie," and showed Charlie an evidence wall which she'd created inside the building. Mrs. Amber had stuck pictures on the wall and pieces of evidence on the table beneath it. Right, Charlie, there must have been someone who saw something. Well, yeah, I guess I did, Mrs. Amber. What do you mean you did, Charlie? Well, I did see a few strange things when making my way over here earlier. What do you mean by strange, Charlie? Well, there was a man with long hair and a long coat whistling about his lunch, and then there was a lady in a fur coat who dressed her dog up and called it Patricia. And then there was a man with a peg leg singing a funny old song about you with a wooden leg poke the fire. They were all right near the special building, going in different directions, right at the same time that I made my way across the road to investigate. Charlie, said Mrs. Amber, have you seen these people before? No, never, Charlie said. Well, said Mrs. Amber, we need to do something to attract those people back here so we can interrogate them. Mrs. Amber? Yes, said Mrs. Amber. Interrogate is a bit of a strong one, isn't it? We've got to get the famous cup back, Charlie, by hook or by crook. By hook or by crook. She's gone completely mad, thought Charlie. Mrs. Amber then said to Charlie, tomorrow we'll put on a competition of 3 categories. Charlie interrupted. Mrs. Amber, tomorrow is Tuesday. I can't imagine we're going to attract many people on a Tuesday, are we? Well, why not? Said Mrs. Amber. Well, because it's Tuesday, Mrs. Amber. It's not exactly a Saturday or a Sunday. People are at work. Mrs. Amber insisted that they would get on and they would do the competition. She told Charlie to tell his mum that he had to go and help Mrs. Amber with a project for school that would help Charlie with his homework. Charlie looked left, right, left again, and one last time to the right before he raced across the road, opened the door ever so slightly, and shouted into the house. Mum, I'm going to Mrs. Amber's. She's helping me with a project for school. Back at dinner. Charlie's mum started to answer back before the sound of a door slamming cut her off. Charlie and Mrs. Amber started the short walk from the special building to Mrs. Amber's house. As Charlie and Mrs. Amber arrived at 543 Templeware Close, where Mrs. Amber lived, Charlie walked up the long, windy path, brushing his hands across the long, overgrown cottage garden plants before arriving at the front door of her house. You'll have to excuse the cats, said Mrs. Amber. There's quite a few of them. They're all very friendly, though. Charlie entered the cottage and was immediately struck by the smell of tuna and the sight of many cats. How many cats have you got, Mrs. Amber? 15, shouted Mrs. Amber. 5 British Shorthairs, 5 Persians, and 5 Scottish Folds. Mrs. Amber was charging around her house like a headless chicken, looking for something. What are you looking for, Mrs. Amber? Said Charlie. My box of tricks, Charlie. My box of tricks. Ah! Mrs. Amber shouted with a pleased and relieved tone. Here it is. Mrs. Amber had opened the box of tricks, which was full of arts and crafts gear. She told Charlie to sit at the table, plonked the box in front of him, and said it was time to make posters for the competition. Charlie couldn't quite believe what was happening and said, Right, Mrs. Amber, I thought you were joking. We're actually going to be putting on a competition. Yes, absolutely we are, Charlie, said Mrs. Amber. What on earth is this competition going to be? Well, Charlie, said Mrs. Amber, you said that you'd never seen these people before, right? Yes, that's right. Well, we need to entice them back. The man who whistled about his supper, the lady with the Rottweiler called Patricia, and the gentleman with the wooden leg. "We're going to have a talent competition, Charlie," said Mrs. Amber. "You've gone completely mad," said Charlie. "Mark my words, Charlie. We'll get to the bottom of this. Now, we've got work to do. We need to make a poster which says talent competition with 3 categories. 1, the soup competition. 2, the dogs that look like their owners competition. And 3, the fire poking competition. Tuesday, May 14th. Charlie did what he was told and got on with making the posters. Once Mrs. Amber and Charlie finished making the posters, they stuck them in every shop window and on every lamppost 3 miles radius of the special building where the competition would take place. Tuesday afternoon came, and unbelievably, there was a queue of people outside. There was a range of folk standing there with dogs, pots of soup, and fire poking sticks. This was quite possibly the strangest competition that has ever happened in England, maybe even in the world. Mrs. Amber said to Charlie, "Charlie, you must be at the door signing people in. You know what the 3 people look like, don't you? You need to have a sharp eye on you today. If one of them turns up, you need to give me an over-exaggerated wink and point to them. Is that understood, Charlie?" Charlie, looking a little bit bewildered, nodded and agreed. Charlie stood at the door and welcomed all the attendees, noting down their names, numbers, and their addresses. This is genius, thought Charlie. If the 3 of them come to the door, we can get their addresses and check them out. Mrs. Amber is a genius, he thought. As the queue started to get smaller and there was only a handful of people left, Charlie spotted that the last 2 people were no other than the lady with the Rottweiler Patricia and the man who whistled about his soup. "Bingo," he muttered. Charlie clocked Mrs. Amber's eye, gave her an over-exaggerated wink, and nodded their direction. Mrs. Amber then jumped onto the stage, grabbed a megaphone, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, cooks and dog owners, welcome to the Winkleberry Soup, Dog and Fire Poking Competition. My name is Mrs. Amber, and I'm the head judge. That boy over there is Charlie, and he's the deputy head judge. We'll taste your soups, view your dogs, and watch your fire poking skills. So, well, get yourselves ready." Mrs. Amber and Charlie then spent the next couple of hours doing one of the strangest competitions you could ever imagine. They tasted a range of soups, including a broccoli, cabbage and sprout soup, a beetroot, aubergine and purple carrot soup, and a sesame seed soup. The fire poking competition was called off for health and safety reasons, and only one lady turned up for the dogs that looked like their owners section. Once the afternoon's events had finished, Charlie and Mrs. Amber reconvened to look at the addresses of the 2 possible thieves. The lady who called her dog Patricia was also called Patricia herself, and she lived at 405 Twirler Avenue. And the man who whistled about his sesame seed soup lived at 333 Potland Lane. Mrs. Amber and Charlie agreed to meet at the special building at 9 a.m. the next day, as this would be a big day in the mystery of the missing cup. Chapter 2. Lady Patricia. It was Wednesday morning, and Charlie was woken up by the bright morning sun rising through a crack in his bedroom curtains. Today wasn't any other school holiday day, though. It was another day of being a crime investigator, carrying an immense amount of responsibility, as the missing cup needed to be found in time for the famous cup final. Charlie, as agreed, met Mrs. Amber outside the special building at 9 a.m. Mrs. Amber stood there like a military commander with 2 rucksacks and a bin liner full of stuff. "Morning, Mrs. Amber," shouted Charlie. "Shh! We don't want to draw any attention to ourselves, Charlie. Keep your blooming voice down, will you, boy?" Mrs. Amber hurried Charlie into the special building and shut the door behind them both. They walked into one of the rooms, and Mrs. Amber poured the contents of the bin liner onto the floor. Charlie looked down and said, "What on earth is all this stuff, Mrs. Amber?" "This, Charlie, is what we will be wearing today. It is our disguise. We don't want to get noticed at either of the addresses we're going to, do we?" "No, I suppose you're right, Mrs. Amber," said Charlie. Mrs. Amber chucked Charlie some clothes, which included a long-sleeve white top, some dungarees, and a long, curly, blonde wig. Mrs. Amber, I think these are yours, said Charlie. No, certainly not. They're yours, Charlie. Today you'll be known as Elof. You must be joking, yelled Charlie. I sound like a Swedish waiter. You'll have me cooking meatballs in gravy before I know it. Just get the clothes on, will you? Said Mrs. Amber, with a very serious look on her face and a tone which told Charlie she wasn't playing today. Charlie did what he was told. He got the white top on, the dungarees and the blonde long wig. He stood in front of a mirror and in his best Swedish accent he repeated, My name is Elof. My name is Elof. My name is Elof. Mrs. Amber had dressed herself up as a parking warden. She was wearing a white shirt, a bright high-vis vest, and a black curly wig with an old train driver's hat. Oh, and a stick-on moustache, which looked very strange. Charlie and Mrs. Amber were doing a funny old job of not being seen because they certainly looked entertaining. Mrs. Amber, Charlie said. Yes, Elof, said Mrs. Amber. If my new name is Elof, what do I call you? Because I can't call you Mrs. Amber, you have a moustache. You will call me, John. John, that'll be my name. Call me John, Charlie. Charlie stood there wondering what on earth he got himself into. Right, Elof, said Mrs. Amber. The first address we are going to is 405 Twirler Avenue, the Patricia's house. Charlie, also now known as Elof, and Mrs. Amber, also known as John, went out the door and were ready to go. Mrs. Amber started walking off at a high-speed pace out of the driveway of the special building and straight onto the pavement of the main road. Charlie shouted, Mrs. Amber, sorry, I mean John, where's your car? Mrs. Amber responded, I don't have a car, Elof. We're walking. Charlie went a funny shade of grey, and that feeling of dread filled him from his nose to his toes. What if I'm seen, he thought. I'll have a nickname of Elof forever. Charlie had to get on with it, though. He was on a mission, and it was an opportunity to save the day. He chased after John, a.k.a. Mrs. Amber, who was marching down the road like a brigadier. Oh, and if you're not sure what a brigadier is, it's a type of soldier. And what do soldiers do? They march, with the most perfect of postures. This is exactly what Mrs. Amber was doing. As Charlie and Mrs. Amber were walking up the road, they were getting some funny looks from all the drivers and pedestrians travelling in different directions. In the distance, Charlie could see a small group of children his age walking on the other side of the pavement. However, these children were coming towards him and Mrs. Amber. They also had a football in their hands. Charlie's feeling of dread returned as he had a nudge of the memory and thought to himself, Oh no, it's Wednesday. I said to George, Andrew and Joshua that I would be playing football with them today. They're heading towards my house. What on earth am I going to do? Things went from worse to worse as the three mates of Charlie's crossed the road and they were now not only walking towards them, but were on the same side of the pavement. A minute later, the three friends were at a distance where they could have a very good look at Charlie and Mrs. Amber. Charlie felt like his heart had dropped into his stomach as he went into full panic mode. The three mates couldn't keep their eyes off of Mrs. Amber and Charlie as they went opposite directions. And then one of them said, Guys, stop. I know that face from somewhere. Charlie and Mrs. Amber stopped and turned around, staring at the group in hope that they wouldn't ask them anything too suspicious. What's your name? One of them said. I feel like I know you from somewhere. Mrs. Amber lowered her voice and said, My name's John. No, not you, miss, one of them said. Sorry, sir. What's your name? Pointing at Charlie. Elof? As Charlie said that, he went completely red. Mrs. Amber then just shouted at the three mates, Now sling your hook, or I'll be round to your houses to give your parents a parking ticket, and you will be to blame. Charlie's three pals disappeared quickly and headed towards his house. Charlie couldn't quite believe what he'd got himself into. How did I go from that lovely dream about cheesecake to wearing a wig and being called Elof? This is completely ridiculous, Charlie thought. Nevertheless, Charlie followed Mrs. Amber, who was now marching down the road looking even weirder than she already did. He followed Mrs. Amber down a series of twists and turns, and eventually they ended up at Twirler Avenue. "Aha!" said Mrs. Amber. "We are here." "What house is that house there?" Mrs. Amber said to Charlie as she pointed to a house on the corner. Number 1, replied Charlie. "Oh, blimey," said Mrs. Amber. "We've got a long old walk to get to 405. Charlie and Mrs. Amber continued walking down the path, walking past dog walkers, joggers, a postman and a postwoman, continuing to get many bizarre looks. After another 15 minutes of walking, Charlie and Mrs. Amber were getting closer and closer. Mrs. Amber started calling the numbers of the houses as they walked by each one. 391, 393, 397, 399, 401, 403. Mrs. Amber was all of a sudden extremely confused, and she looked it too. "What is up with you, Mrs. Amber?" "Sorry, I mean John," said Charlie. "Well," said Mrs. Amber, "on almost every road here in England you have odd numbers on one side of the road and even numbers on the other. These numbers go from 403 straight to 407. There doesn't seem to be a 405 Twirler Avenue, which is the address that Patricia gave us at the competition." As the pair of them looked as ridiculous as ever, scratching their heads, and Mrs. Amber twirled her moustache, a postman shouted from the other side of the road. All right over there, are you two all right? You look a bit confused, to tell you the truth." Mrs. Amber, not forgetting that she was now John, deepened her voice and said, "Yes, we're all right, Nosy. We're looking for 405 Twirler Avenue, but seeing as 403 is there and 407 is there, we can't be far away." The postman looked left and right and crossed the road. He got up close to Mrs. Amber and Charlie and said, "Well, yes, I mean, you are in the right spot, but you won't find the house. Nobody actually really knows where it is. The people who live there just seem to appear out of nowhere with a range of different dogs who look, well, I guess, just like them." "Bingo!" said Mrs. Amber, forgetting that she had a moustache and had just spoken to the postman in a deep and deceiving voice. Mrs. Amber then deepened her voice again and said, "I mean, bingo." The postman looked very confused, then proceeded to tell Charlie and Mrs. Amber that there's been no post delivered to 405 Twirler Avenue since 1966. The house was there then in 1966, and just one day it wasn't. I mean, not that I'm old enough to know that, but Ken in the office told us. "Anyway," said the postman, "why are you looking for him?" Mrs. Amber deepened her voice once more and said, "Well, it's a long story, but we need to find a Lady Patricia who has a dog called Patricia. And, well, that's all I can tell you for now." Mrs. Amber, a.k.a. John, thanked the postman for his help and made it clear to him that the conversation was over. The postman got the message and walked back across the road, continuing his rounds. Mrs. Amber then walked to the dead centre between the two houses and spotted a very, very thin gap in between the fences of the two houses. Mrs. Amber instructed Charlie to follow her as she went sideways down this very, very tight gap. Charlie reluctantly followed, and the gap between the fence seemed to go on forever and ever, until eventually it opened up onto a random patch of grass, which was big enough to play some five-a-side football on. At the back of the patch of grass, there was a steep slope, and out of nowhere, from that steep slope, appeared a Rottweiler dog. A Rottweiler dog wearing beads and a bonnet hat. Charlie and Mrs. Amber dived behind a large oak tree. "Bloomin' heck," said Charlie. "What if that dog sniffs us out?" Mrs. Amber put her teeth together, showing an expression of being unsure as she inhaled a lungful of air through the gap in her teeth. The two of them stayed deadly silent, trying not to cause any sort of movement which would make the dog come over to them. After a few minutes, Mrs. Amber stuck her head to the side of a tree and watched the dog disappear down the slope. Mrs. Amber and Charlie pushed themselves off the floor with their hands and slowly walked across the grass, dodging the dog poo and heading towards the steep slope. Charlie and Mrs. Amber walked down it, and when they reached the bottom of the steep slope, they noticed an opening in the grass. As they walked closer to check it out, suddenly both Charlie and Mrs. Amber fell through a trap floor and whizzed down a twirling slide into a room where the same Rottweiler they had just been hiding from was now a metre away from them, growling. "Good doggy, good doggy, good doggy," Mrs. Amber repeated with a worried and shaken voice. Charlie, now worried and beyond scared, said to Mrs. Amber, Mrs. Amber, what the blimmin' heck do we do now?" When a familiar voice said, "You explain to me what you're doing in my house." It was Lady Patricia, the one that Charlie had seen when he crossed the road to investigate when he saw that the side door was open on the very special building. "Ah, Patricia," said Mrs. Amber, "do you remember us?" No, I don't believe I do." Mrs. Amber had to think fast, because there was a very angry lady and a very confused dog staring at them, wondering, one, how they found 405 Twirler Avenue, and why they were at the bottom of the twirling slide and in their underground house. Mrs. Amber decided to come clean. She took her hat off and her wig. She reached over to Charlie and took his long blonde hair off. "I'm Mrs. Amber, and this is Charlie. We ran the competition that you entered with your dog, Patricia. I'm the caretaker for the building in which that competition was held. The day of the competition, we thought you and your dog, Patricia, were so marvellous and so fantastic that we wanted to come and speak to you about judging next year's competition. How does that sound, Patricia?" The Rottweiler dog did that confused, head to the side thing that dogs do when you say anything which rhymes with walk. And Patricia, the lady who was still scratching her head and humming to herself, said, "I don't know if I believe you. And even if you did want to invite me back to be a judge, I can't blame you for doing so. But why didn't you just write me a letter?" "Well," said Mrs. Amber. But before Mrs. Amber could finish her response, an almighty bang and the sound of a grown man screaming could be heard when the postman, who had not long given Mrs. Amber and Charlie some directions, came clattering down the side. "Whoa! Oh, no! What on earth are you doing in my house?" said Lady Patricia. "He's the postman," said Charlie. "Yes," said Patricia, "I can see that. What's he doing in my house?" The postman, who had just fallen down the same trapdoor that Mrs. Amber and Charlie had, now had 3 people and the Rottweiler dog staring straight at him. He then went on to say, all right, I'm Bill, I'm the postman." Mrs. Amber, Charlie and Lady Patricia all said at the same time, "We know you're the postman. What are you doing here?" "Well," said Bill, the postman, "I followed you two down that really tight gap in between the fences. I gotta tell you, I'm quite pleased myself because I got a bit of a beer belly, and I was just intrigued more than anything, to tell you the truth. I wanted to know more about what you were doing, so I quietly followed you until I disappeared down a slide into a house. It was quite fun, a little bit scary though." Lady Patricia walked away from the 3 of them, and her dog followed. She did loops around the island in her kitchen, and rather angrily started raising her voice. "Patricia the dog and I have a lovely time on a Wednesday morning, planning our outfit for when we go out later, and then you 3 come clattering down the entrance to my house uninvited because 2 of you want me to be a judge and 1 of you is downright nosy." "I'm not nosy," shouted the postman, who was quickly told to be quiet by Lady Patricia. Okay, said Mrs. Amber. "We'll tell you the truth. I really am Mrs. Amber. I'm in charge of a special building down the road from here." "Oh," said the postman, "that's where the famous cup's held, isn't it?" "That's why we're here," said Mrs. Amber, while Lady Patricia and Postman John looked at her with even more confusion on their faces. Mrs. Amber then went on to say, "On Monday morning, the cup was stolen. 1 minute it was there, and, well, the next minute it was gone. Young Charlie here lives opposite the special building, and he noticed on that morning that the side door was open, and he came over to investigate. Charlie then carries on telling the story from his eyes. Yes, he said, Mrs. Amber's right. I saw the side door was open. It's never normally open, so I came to investigate. On my way across the road, I saw 3 people I've never seen before. There was a man whistling about his supper, a man with a wooden leg singing a song about you with the wooden leg poked the fire, and then, well, there was you, Lady Patricia. Mrs. Amber then continued and said, So I am sorry to say the competition you entered was a false competition. It was all an act to try and get the 2 other people and yourself in the same room. You were all right there, right at the time that the cup went missing. We need to find that special cup before Saturday. It's the famous cup final. And if we don't, I'm going to be in a world of trouble. Lady Patricia responded and said, Well, I can assure you that it wasn't me that stole the cup on that very day when the rain came lashing down. But I do remember you, Charlie. But I also remember something which didn't seem right. With that, the postman jumped up to his feet and shouted, I'm getting out of here. This sounds like a nightmare. And this was the moment when Mrs. Amber put a firm hand on his shoulder and told him that he would be going nowhere. And he was now a part of a crime investigation team, and all of them would be making their way to the special building. Charlie and the Mystery of the Missing Cup, Chapter 3, The New Members. It was Wednesday afternoon at 12:15 back at the special building. Charlie and Mrs. Amber had 3 new recruits on board. Bill the nosy postman, Patricia, and the other Patricia. That's the dog, if you hadn't remembered. The group of them gathered in the evidence room, around the pictures and the evidence which sat on the table beneath. Mrs. Amber reached for a pointing stick that was leaning up against the wall and pointed towards the bead on the table and then said to Lady Patricia, So, Patricia, you were right near the building at the time that the cup went missing, and we found this pink bead on the inside of the building when immediately investigating. Would you like to share how this very bead may have got into this very building? Patricia replied, Well, I can tell you. I have many beads and many different colours, but I can assure you that I don't have any of that colour, and neither does my dog, Patricia. But, as I was trying to tell you when the 3 of you came clattering down the entrance to my house this morning, there was something strange happening that morning. The morning that the cup went missing. Go on, tell us more then, said Bill the postman. Well, said Patricia, you said you'd never seen me around here before, Charlie. But it's probably because you're always at school on a Monday. Patricia and I walk past here every Monday without fail. And I can also tell you that I have seen the man who whistles through his teeth about his sesame seed soup. And William, the man with the wooden leg. He moved to the area a while ago and is a very lovely man who has been through some tough times in his life, mainly at sea. Well, what's the strange bit then? Said Bill the postman. I was just about to get to that, Bill, said Patricia. Patricia, my dog, was up and restless earlier than usual on that Monday morning. I have no idea why. Maybe she sensed something. Dogs are good at that. Anyway, I decided I would walk Patricia earlier than usual and take her on an extra long walk to try and wear her out. So at around 6:30 in the morning, we walked past a very special building, and it was at that time that I noticed that the side door was open. Like I say, we walk past this building every Monday, and I've never seen that side door open before. For a moment, the group stared at the floor, at each other and around the room, as they all undoubtedly tried to work out if the truth was being told by anybody at all. Charlie thought in his head that someone here isn't telling the truth. Charlie couldn't bite his tongue any longer, and he said to Lady Patricia, You say William, the man with a wooden leg, is a nice chap, and he's had a tough life. But how are we meant to believe a word that you're saying? How are we meant to really know he's a good man? And how are we really meant to know how much you actually know about him? Lady Patricia, in a very stern and assertive voice, said that she'd walked past him on her dog walks many, many times, and he'd always been polite and wished her a good day, and that she knows a crook when she sees one. And William, the man with the wooden leg, certainly wasn't one of them. Charlie said to the group that he wasn't quite buying it, and he wanted them to investigate William secretly, watch his every move for the rest of the day, and see what he's up to. This is when Mrs. Amber interrupted. Charlie, if Patricia knows him and he's a good man, then that should be good enough. However, Charlie was adamant that they should still investigate the man quietly to tick him off the list and settle everybody's thoughts around him. Bill the postman spoke up and agreed with Charlie. And this is when Charlie smiled and said, Bill, you're a postie. You must know the man and where he lives. No, I don't actually, said Bill the postman. He's not on my round. And this was when Lady Patricia spoke up and said that she knew exactly where he resided and that she would take them there, just to get this done and dusted and prove her right once and for all. The investigation squad got their things together and they followed Lady Patricia and the dog Patricia as they walked towards the location where William, the wooden-legged man, called home. After walking for 15 minutes or so, the investigation squad came close and Lady Patricia pointed at an alleyway and said to the group, We're close now. William lives at the bottom of this alleyway in a house antique shop. It's a combination of the two. The problem is, if we walk down this alleyway, he will instantly see us, as directly at the end is his place. Bill the postman piped up once more. I know another entrance to this building. It's round the side. It used to be an old track, and I remember posting there when I was an apprentice. It was closed off years ago, and it's only accessible via foot these days. Follow me. Bill led them all the way to the side entrance, where they had to climb over brambles, dodge trees and prickly leaves, and then they could eventually see the building with an old rustic sign, which said, William's Wondrous Whatnots. And it was at this moment that Charlie thought maybe Lady Patricia isn't lying. She said his name was William, and if this really is his shop or house, it is called William's Wondrous Whatnots. And this is when Mrs. Amber said, OK, now we've established that he is William and he does live in this property, I don't think we need to go against Patricia any more, Charlie. She is clearly telling the truth. Charlie respectfully said to Mrs. Amber that he hadn't even had a look inside to see if it's him. It could be any old William, and it could be anyone's place. And it was at this moment when Bill the postman puffed out his chest, lifted his head up and said, He's right, you know, it could be any William and it could be anybody's place. I'm with Charlie on this one. Bill the postman had a look around and then said to Charlie, Charlie, you're the smallest one here, the most agile and the least likely to be seen. If you jump through that edge there and have a look through the window, you'll be able to see if he's in there. Charlie clambered through the remaining hedging and finally got to some concrete. He sneaked to the side of the building, crouching and moving around like a special services soldier. And eventually he got to a low-sitting window which was large and filthy. Charlie quietly and secretly stuck his head to the window. There he was, the man with the wooden leg, William, in the bizarrest of places. William's Wondrous Whatnots really was a weird and wonderful place. Clutter absolutely everywhere, and William was sat in a chair with his wooden leg resting on a stool. He had a tool in his hand and a strange contraption in the other. He was clearly making something, or adjusting it, but it was nothing like Charlie had seen before. Charlie returned back to the group, who were scratching their legs from the nettles and picking the thorns out of their hands. Well, said Mrs. Amber, what did you see, Charlie? Charlie told them that it was the strangest place he may have ever seen, but that William was in there with his wooden leg, resting it and making something in his chair, which looked like some sort of wooden gadget which Charlie had never seen before. But William was in William's Wondrous Whatnots, and he was definitely the man he had seen on that day. And without going any further and going inside, he didn't have anything else to report. Mrs. Amber then urged the group to leave and said that he was clearly just an old and eccentric man who had a bizarre hobby of creating weird and wonderful things in William's Wondrous Whatnots. And she insisted that the group really should head home before it starts to get dark. With that, the investigation group returned back to the special building for a debrief and to formulate a plan of action. Because after all is said and done, there's still no special cup, and the final is only a couple of days away. The team were rapidly running out of time. After returning back to the special building, Mrs. Amber tells the group that tomorrow, which is Thursday, she has to go and see her daughter, who lives around 100 miles away. She won't be doing anything to do with the investigation, and the team should reconvene on Friday morning for one last blast at catching the culprit. Charlie stayed quiet, while Lady Patricia agreed. The dog Patricia barked, and Bill the postman grunted, as he realised he now had a backlog of letters he needed to post. They all went their separate ways, and Charlie crossed the road to go back home. This is when Charlie went to his house, went upstairs and into his bedroom, falling onto his bed. He stared at the ceiling. As he laid there staring at the ceiling, he had this feeling in his gut that something wasn't quite right about the whole situation. Something was a bit fishy, and he couldn't quite work out what it was. Charlie decided after 5 minutes of laying there that the next day he would go at the investigation alone. He would return back to William's wondrous whatnots and try and make sense of this character he hadn't yet spent any time with. He would get to the bottom of it one way or another, and there was no way he would ever give up. Join me next time in Chapter 4 when Charlie goes solo. And let me tell you, he finds an unbelievable place, one of the most mysterious places he's ever been, a place which he didn't even know exists, but a place which will without doubt take him a step further to finding the missing cup. Chapter 4. Going Solo. Thursday had crash-landed like a rogue custard pie into Charlie's week. 1 minute he was swimming in a dream sea of triple chocolate cheesecake with sprinkles that tasted of actual happiness. The next, he was knee-deep in a mystery, so baffling it could make a badger wear a tutu. He'd even acquired a ridiculous nickname, Olaf, and sported more disguises than a chameleon in a paint factory. And let's not forget the unexpected tumble down a secret slide that ended with a rather glamorous Rottweiler sporting a shade of lipstick that would make even the Queen raise an eyebrow. Honestly, it was the kind of week that would make your sock spontaneously do a little dance. But Charlie, whose passion for football was so intense it could power a small village, knew that that missing trophy needed rescuing. So, there was Lady Patricia, posh as a teacup, and her equally posh pooch, also called Patricia, which was frankly confusing. Then there was William, with William's wondrous whatnots, but a new player had shuffled onto the pitch of Charlie's thoughts. The man who whistled about his sesame seed soup. Sesame seed soup. Sesame seed soup. That sound echoed in Charlie's ears as he wrestled himself out of bed. Right, he muttered, his duvet resembling a crumbled football net. We've got Lady Patricia and her pearl-wearing pooch sussed. I think anyway, said Charlie. Then we've got William's wondrous whatnots, which is definitely hiding something fishy. But the soup whistler, he vanished like a fart in a hurricane. Charlie knew he had to unearth the secrets of the man who whistled about his sesame seed soup. And he certainly wasn't finished with William and his wondrous whatnots. So Charlie stuck on yet another one of his grass-stained football kits. His brain buzzed like a swarm of angry bees trapped in a biscuit tin. Downstairs, breakfast was a blur of toast soldiers and mumbled good mornings. But amidst the chaos, a plan began to solidify in Charlie's mind. Today, he announced mid-chew on a particularly enthusiastic piece of bacon, I'm going to keep an eye on Lady Patricia, see if she's up to any sneaky business. Perhaps she'll be training her dog to yogle opera at midnight, or whatever it is she gets up to with a dog called Patricia. And then, hang on a minute, is that? Charlie was glaring out the window. He couldn't believe who he had just seen. That's not who I think it is it? My goodness, Charlie thought. It's him, the man who whistled about his sesame seed soup, with his long hair and that brown coat which had seen better days. So, faster than a cheetah that was chasing a runaway sausage, Charlie yanked on his trainers, grabbed his trusty football, and bellowed a quick, "I'll be back soon," to his mum. He burst out of his driveway. The soup whistler was already halfway across the field when Charlie had got to the end of his drive. Right, Charlie thought, his football tucked under his arm like a secret weapon. Operation Follow That Soup Whistler. Let's go. Charlie tiptoed across the crunchy grass, trying to be as stealthy as a squirrel wearing fluffy slippers. But suddenly, the man spun around, his eyes staring right at Charlie. Had he heard Charlie's tummy rumbling? Charlie instantly launched into a dazzling display of dribbling with that football of his, weaving the ball in and out of his feet, throwing in a cheeky rainbow flick for good measure, all while inching closer. The man, looking even more suspicious and worried, got faster and faster and got further and further away from Charlie. Charlie darted right after him, knowing this might be the only chance to catch that slippery soup lover before that trophy was gone forever. The long brown coat disappeared through the trees like a ghostly sail. The man kept stopping and whipping round and staring at Charlie, and Charlie kept doing what he did best, rainbow flicks and keepy uppies, keeping the man wondering whether he was following him or whether he was just following him with a football. Charlie saw the gap in the woods where the man walked through. With the football now under his arms again, he sprinted towards the woodland. As he edged closer and closer, Charlie moved like a ninja on his tiptoes. But then, crack! A dry branch snapped right under his trainer. That sound echoed through the quiet woods like a firework. The soup whistler whirled round, and his 3 teeth could be seen menacingly. "Oi, you!" Charlie's legs turned to jelly, then springs. He bolted, his football bouncing wildly behind him until he burst out of the woods and back onto the familiar safety of the field which he knew. His lungs felt like they had a football in each of them. Charlie panted and tried to get his breath back. He was like a racehorse who had just drunk a gallon of fizzy pop. And as he stopped to gather his thoughts and catch his breath, he thought back to the original plan. Lady Patricia's peculiar pad awaited. So he marched towards 405 Twirler Avenue. When he eventually got to 405 Twirler Avenue, he knew exactly where to go. So he squeezed through that ever so tight gap in the fence and once again found himself on that slightly slanted patch of land that was, unbelievably, the roof of Lady Patricia's house. Everything was eerily quiet. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, apart from the fact that there was still a whole house lurking beneath the lawn, but Charlie knew that. Suddenly, out of the blue, Patricia the dog appeared, but a string of rather eye-catching pink beads. She seemed to recognise Charlie, her tail giving a tentative wag. Then, in a truly bizarre turn of events, she vanished down the secret entrance, only to reappear moments later with her lead dangling from her mouth, offering it to Charlie with a friendly bark. "Woof! Is there somewhere you want me to take you, Patricia?" Charlie asked. Utterly bewildered, it was like Patricia could understand every word Charlie was saying, and she barked back. "Has it got something to do with the missing cup?" Charlie said. Patricia the dog barked with even more urgency, followed by an excited jiggle. Charlie unclipped the pink beads and attached the lead to Patricia's collar, and then let her take the reins, or rather, the lead. They squeezed back through that tight gap in the fence, Patricia pulling Charlie along with the determination of a truffle-hunting pig, until they emerged onto Twirler Avenue. Charlie spotted a neighbour across the road who had a sign outside their house, which read, "Free, please take whatever you wish." Among the things which you could take whatever you wished was a skateboard. Charlie grabbed the skateboard, hopped on, gripped Patricia's lead, and whoosh! They were off like a rocket. Patricia's quite big legs pumped furiously. They whizzed down pavements, dodged bewildering shoppers, zoomed through a man's legs, causing him to drop his strawberry ice cream. flew through a head shaped like a grumpy badger, and finally skidded to a halt on a random patch of woodland. Patricia started bouncing up and down on the same spot, followed by doing zoomies. And if you've never seen a dog do a zoomie before, it's when they just race from one location to another for absolutely no reason at all. However, Patricia was onto something. "Is there something under here, Patricia?" Charlie asked. His hair slightly windswept, Patricia barked empathetically, pawing at the leafy ground. Charlie kicked away some of the leaves and dirt, revealing a large moss-covered cover with 2 rusty handles. "Is there something under here that you want me to see, Patricia?" Charlie asked. Another enthusiastic bark was his answer. With a grunt, Charlie heaved open the heavy covers. Beneath lay a set of rickety wooden steps leading into the darkness. As Charlie descended, the whole place sprang to life, revealing what looked like an underground spaghetti junction of tunnels. Patricia barked and nudged Charlie towards a ramp built into the wall. She clearly wanted him to put it down. Charlie obliged, and Patricia zipped down it as if she owned the place. This definitely wasn't her first time down this ramp. Charlie folded the ramp and clambered back up to close the covers, plunging that entrance above back into a leafy obscurity. Looking around, Charlie started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 different tunnels, which all went into the darkness. He had no idea what this place was. A secret badger burrow? A forgotten network of smugglers' tunnels? But Patricia, now strangely silent, nudged his foot and set off down one of the passages, glancing back as if to say, "Follow me and keep it snappy." This lipstick-wearing, bead-donning Rottweiler seemed to be onto something. The air was damp, and it smelt faintly of earthworms or something vaguely metallic. The lights flickered in the tunnel like mischievous fireflies as they walked deeper. Eventually, Patricia led Charlie to another ladder, leading upwards to another hidden cover. She nudged his leg and looked upwards. Charlie, finally getting the hand of Patricia's silent instructions, climbed the ladder and cautiously lifted the cover. This is when his jaw dropped so far it could have scooped up a runaway snail. "My goodness," Charlie said. "Is that William's Wondrous Whatnots?" He pushed the cover open a little wider, peeked around to make sure that no one was about, apart from a very confused pigeon wearing a tiny monocle, and hauled himself out of the tunnel. "Stay quiet, Patricia," he whispered. "I'll be back in a jiffy." He quietly closed the tunnel entrance and crept towards the shop window. There was William, surrounded by a bizarre collection of mismatched windows and doors, and he wasn't using a key to lock or unlock them. He was using his wooden leg. He'd slot the end of it into the keyhole, giving it a wiggle, and click, the lock would turn. Charlie blinked, rubbed his eyes, and even gave himself a little pinch just to make sure he wasn't dreaming of a wooden-legged locksmith. This was no trick of the light, no figment of his imagination. Something seriously strange was going on in William's Wondrous Whatnots, and Charlie knew he had to get to the bottom of it. He sprinted back to the hidden tunnel entrance, carefully lifting the lids, and clambered down the ladder to retrieve the 4-legged guide. But Patricia, who had got him there, had vanished. "Patricia," Charlie whispered, with his voice echoing early down the tunnel. "Patricia, where are you?" She was nowhere to be seen. "Oh no," Charlie thought to himself. "There's no way she could have got out because she would need the ramp to get out, and she can't do that by herself, can she? She's got to be waiting for me at the entrance which we made our way into the tunnel from." As Charlie trudged back along the damp tunnel, his fingers trailing along the rough, cold wall, a thought trickled his brain. How long has this tunnel been here, he wondered. Was it built for the Secret Service? And what about those other 4 tunnels? I wonder where they lead. Suddenly, the texture of the wall changed beneath his fingertips. The rough dampness gave way to a smooth, cold stone with deep, regular ridges. Charlie stopped dead in his tracks and took a step back. He ran his hand along the strange surface. It wasn't just a different texture, it was a perfect rectangle, stretching from the floor to the ceiling. It looked exactly like a door. It can't be, can it? Charlie jammed his fingers into the narrow crack along the edge of a stone rectangle, with his heart thumping like a drum. With a mighty grunt and every ounce of his football-owned strength, he pulled. The stone door didn't budge though. It was sealed shut, solid as a rock cake left out in the rain. Charlie took a step back, aimed his foot, and gave the mystery door a hefty kick. And that is when he heard the sound of a voice which said, "I'm afraid you won't get that door open like that." That voice was the voice of William from William's Wondrous Whatnots. Charlie couldn't believe his eyes or ears. Join me next time in Chapter 5, where you'll find out if William is part of the thieves team, or maybe he's about to become Charlie's most useful team member. Chapter 5, The Final Whistle. So, there Charlie was, standing in a mystery tunnel that led to William's Wondrous Whatnots, facing a door that looked like it hadn't been opened since the dinosaurs did keepy-uppies. That's when William suddenly appeared to the side of him. "You won't get that door open like that," said William, calm as a sleeping cat. Charlie went as white as a goalpost and froze on the spot. His knees felt wibbly wobbly just like jelly, and his heart pounded like a drum solo. He'd been caught red-handed in a secret tunnel by a man with a wooden leg, a cowboy hat, and a shop full of clocks, toasters, and inflatable flamingos. "Don't be scared, young man," said William. "I'm on your side. I know what's going on here, I know what you're looking for, and I'm going to help you." Charlie stared at him, suspiciously but curiously. William hobbled over to him. With a click, he attached a small wooden block to his peg leg, twisted his knee in a way that should have been illegal, and then he slotted his wooden leg into a hole in the centre of the stone door, and the enormous door swung open. Inside was a dark chamber with a strange humming sound, flickering lights, and a faint scent of old football boots and smelly old football socks. It looked like something from a spy movie. "Follow me," said William. Charlie did what he was told, even though every part of his brain screamed, "Are you sure, Charlie?" They entered a long-forgotten vault. William limped over the wall, flipped a rusty switch, and boom! A projector on the wall burst into life. A huge flickering image splashed across the wall. It was a glowing map, alive with golden ink and tiny moving lights. Tunnels stretched out like spaghetti under the town, each one marked and pulsing. What is this?" said Charlie, blinking at the moving map. "This," said William, "is the tunnel map. The one we're standing in right now. There are 5 tunnels, 5 destinations. And this," he tapped with his wooden leg, "is my shop, William's Wondrous Whatnots. And this one here," as he tapped again with his wooden leg, "leads to the special building where the cup was being held." Charlie's eyes were wide open and his jaw hit the floor. "And this tunnel here," William pointed to another glowing light, "goes to 405 Twirler Avenue." "I knew it," shouted Charlie. I knew the Patricias had something to do with this. Well, Lady Patricia. Her house is underground. For goodness sake, why didn't I work this out sooner? But William's face didn't smile. Instead, he gave Charlie a long, serious look. The kind of look that a teacher gives you when you're about to find out something massive. And now, said William, comes the part that's going to knock your football socks off. He tapped another glowing tunnel. This one here, this leads to 543 Templeware Close. Charlie scratched his head for a moment. Then his eyes widened like frying pans. Wait a second, that's Mrs. Amber's house. William nodded slowly. Yes, Charlie. I'm afraid Mrs. Amber hasn't been entirely honest with you this whole time. In fact, maybe she's never been honest with you. But, Charlie said in a panic, I saw her panic. I saw her face when the cup went missing. I was there at that moment. I was there when those strange men turned up in that shiny car with shiny wheels and shiny tyres and their bald, shiny heads. They said we had to leave £50,000 in a suitcase in a tree over by the special building. I saw it all. William gave him a deep sigh as he slowly sat down on a creaky stool. Charlie, here we go. That was all part of the game, you see. All part of the game. The what? The what, said Charlie. The game, Charlie. The final whistle. Every 10 years, William said, this town plays a secret game. A game almost no one knows it exists. It's called the final whistle. The rules are simply, although they are completely bonkers. He stood and pointed to the 5th tunnel on the map. It glowed like a red warning light. The famous cup is stolen, hidden, and delivered to a place called Pitch Zero. A place built beneath the original football stadium. Long buried, long forgotten by most, and only accessible through this tunnel. The 5th tunnel. Charlie's jaw hit the metaphorical floor. But why? Because, said William, the creators of the cup believed football needed more than boots and balls. It needed testing. It needed loyalty, bravery, truth. Once every decade, the Guardians must protect the cup. And the challengers, well, they're set to steal it. It's just a part of the game. Part of the ritual. So, there's no real thief, said Charlie. No, Charlie. You've been chasing shadows, my friend. Everyone you suspected. Patricia, Bill the postman, even Mrs. Amber. They were all playing in on the game. Testing each other. In fact, they were testing you as well. Maybe they thought you might have been involved. Charlie couldn't quite believe it. All this time, he'd been trying to discover who the thief was, what was going on. And there was not necessarily any thief at all. All that effort, all that chasing, all the disguises, the posters, the traps, the evidence. And all along, the cup never really went missing, said Charlie. William's face turned grim. For this year, Charlie, it's not just a game, it's different. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the final whistle. Charlie leaned forward, a strange chill running down his back. What happens on the 100th anniversary, William? William hesitated for a moment. Then he pointed to a section on the map which was glowing red hot, lava hot. Well, Charlie, if the wrong person reaches the cup first, it will self-destruct. Self-destruct? Charlie shouted, with his eyes bulging. Boom, said William. No more cup, no more tournament, no more football history round here, my friend. But why? Why would anybody do that? Said Charlie. Well, the whole idea of it, Charlie, was to ensure that the cup is never owned by greed or pride or money. If someone corrupt wins it, then, boom, disappears. It's gone forever. And what if someone good reaches it? Said Charlie. William looked at him for a long time. Well, Charlie, in that case, the cup will survive. Football lives on, and a new guardian is chosen. Charlie stared at the floor. A few seconds went by, and William then said, Charlie, the map lit up at the moment you entered the tunnel. Not for me, not for Bill, not even for Mrs. Amber. Well, what are you getting at? What does that mean, William? Said Charlie. It means that you were chosen. You have passed all the tests. Every single one of them. William turned and walked over to a glass cabinet. Inside sat a small silver pin, shaped like a whistle. He opened it slowly and then pinned it to Charlie's top. You're a guardian now, Charlie. The real one. It's your job to save the missing cup. Charlie's heart pounded. He couldn't speak. He couldn't quite believe what was happening. And you've got... Exactly. William checked the ticking clock on the wall. 43 minutes to beat them to pitch 0. Or the cup, Charlie, is gone forever. Just then, the map on the wall flickered rapidly. 3 golden dots entered different parts of the tunnel. Bill the postman, Lady Patricia, and Mrs. Amber. Charlie then asked William from William's Wondrous Whatnots if all the tunnels were the same distance and how long it would take them to get to Tunnel 0. And William responded in saying that Tunnel 1 would be where Bill the postman would make his way from, starting from the special building. That is the shortest tunnel, just under a mile. It's equipped with speed ramps and old delivery chutes from when the cup was first transported there many years ago. Bill knows every twist and turn, Charlie. He could make it there in 27 minutes flat if he's full of energy. Tunnel 2 is where Lady Patricia will make her way, from 405 Twirler Avenue. It's a winding, cobbled route with maze-like loops, false exits, and tilting floors. But she has a compass which was passed down from her family. If she gets her bearings right, she'll be there in no time. And Tunnel 3, that's where Mrs. Amber will be coming from 543 Temple Close. That's not the easiest tunnel of them all. It's got collapsing ladders and vanishing staircases. Only someone with the original blueprint could get through that in time, but she knows that tunnel like the back of her hand. And Tunnel 4, that's where we are, Charlie. William's Wondrous Whatnots. The longest tunnel of them all. Nearly 2.5 miles of twisted track, filled with ancient machinery, half-flooded stretches, rusted fan tunnels, and one bit goes completely vertical for 7 seconds. When suddenly, a 5-beep timer started counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The chase to the final whistle was on. What are you waiting for, Charlie? Your time has come. Join me next time in the final chapter of Charlie and the Mystery of the Missing Cup. Will Charlie get there before any of the other challenges? Will the cup disappear for the sake of money? Or will Charlie save the day? Chapter 6, only on Patreon and on Apple Podcast subscription for super listeners and club captains.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.